This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is episode 468. I'm your host Duncan McLeish. Welcome to the show. This is a very special episode at the start of a special countdown top 10 series. We are doing this in celebration, in anticipation if you will, for our 10th year anniversary episode of Podcast Under the Stairs, which will be winging its way in your headphones and your YouTubes and wherever else you are consuming this on the 31st of August 2023. It will mark exactly 10 years since we dropped our first episode, which feels like a lifetime ago. It's over 1,200 episodes ago through various different seasons, iterations, styles, formats, guest hosts. It feels like we've come a long way since a couple of Scottish guys and an American sitting on a podcast talking about Chucky. So we really have kind of morphed several times over. We are doing something that I put out to you guys on the Facebook group page as a potential change for the anniversary shows. Generally we do one episode, we pick a theme. Sometimes it's been movie commentaries, sometimes it's been Q&As, and they're always fun. Always enjoyed doing them. I think last year we had an interview. My wife interviewed me with various questions from Podcast Under the Stairs. So we've been through a lot, is what I'm saying. We've been through a lot together. But what I put out as an option this time is something I kind of never really wanted to do, which was a kind of top 10 looking at my particular favourites in horror. And the reason behind that is, for the most part, while some of those titles have remained static and stalwart for over a decade now, there's a lot in there that does change, and it changes depending on mood, it changes depending on season, it's changed in age, certainly, for sure. Certain titles just don't hold up the same way they did for me before, but it's a list that I'm never really comfortable about. Kind of feels like a high-rise tower built on quicksand. You're just waiting for the next brick to go under. And as a result of that, what I decided to do was throw caution to the wind. With a caveat that this 10 would be my top 10 favourite horror movies, as opposed to the ones that I think are the top 10 best. Now, you may be thinking, Duncan, semantically, is there a difference between the two? And yes, there is. I can certainly argue stronger the case in point for why a movie is my favourite. When it comes to why I think a movie is the best made horror movie or the best example of a horror movie, that's completely different. Sometimes the worst movies I've seen have an entertainment value which makes them exist in a realm where I will pick them up depending on my mood, moreover than I would something incredibly highbrow. That being said, this is me we're talking about here, and you know my list is going to have some stuff. You know it's going to have some stuff, so you might as well strap in for it. So yeah, over the next 10 days, one a day, you'll be getting a movie review. It will be featured on our YouTube page. It'll be on the old Spotify video podcast thing that happens, and it'll be on all the general places that we launch our audio content. If you would rather see these videos, you're not really missing much, to be fair, but if you'd rather see them, then please visit our YouTube page or sign up to us on Spotify. If you like where you are and you're happy with what you've got, then just stay and do that as well. If you are checking us out on YouTube though, I would appreciate a little sub. So please subscribe to our feed. There's loads more video content coming before the end of the year, specifically Bazoween, which will be hitting up your way come October. So now we've done all those plugs, let's get into it, shall we? No surprises, my list is a bit of an odd one. Yes, there are going to be a few in here which I almost guarantee will be like, yep, that makes sense, that tracks. It's one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and Duncan is, he's on point. I also guarantee there's going to be a couple of infuriating choices and a couple of head scratchers. But once again, these are my favourite movies, and these movies are accurate up until the 31st of August 2023, and I reserve the right on the 1st of September 2023 to start swapping things out and changing my mind. I've stuck to my guns. This is what we're going to do here. Now, joining me is my trusty iPad. The reason the iPad is here is generally in the audio content or when I'm recording at my screen, I have a screen to look at which allows me to look at things like IMDb, and that gives me a confidence or lack thereof when it comes to names to have details at my hands to guide us through. We don't have that, so I have my iPad here, and I will be other products are available obviously, but I will be picking off some details, but not a huge amount. So once I've kind of got through the synopsis and stuff, I will just be putting this off to the side and we will continue on. The idea here is to try and do this as close to one cut as possible, so I will try and hide the seams cleverly or not so cleverly as we work our way through. Every single one of these episodes will of course feature the trailer, so let me give you a little bit of the setup to number 10 on my list. And this one, like I say, may come as a bit of a surprise, not if you've read the title or the show notes for the episode in advance of hitting play. So number 10 on my list, I would argue, is the one that really kicks the whole A24 thing into gear. It kind of sets the stall out for what that label is going to do essentially over the next decade, from small obscure independent studio to studio which this year claimed Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. I think they got all of them. Did they get Best Director? I can't remember. If they didn't, then fuck, they pretty much cleaned house. Granted, it wasn't for a horror movie, but it was certainly for a genre movie. So, but this to me is their first proper foray into the world of horror, and actually deals with a lot of the themes that the kind of label itself has continued to explore throughout its run in the horror genre, and there's no signs of them slowing down on that one. It's just like back-to-back horror films pretty much all the way through coming at you. So yeah, the one I've chosen here as my first pick is from 2013. It stars Scarlett Johansson. It's directed by Jonathan Glazer, and it is of course Under the Skin.
So you live alone?
Yes.
You think I'm pretty?
I know, gorgeous.
Come to me. When was the last time you touched someone? You don't want to wake up, do you?
And welcome back. So yeah, Under the Skin is my first pick. It's in at number 10 for me. A movie that over time has just grown and grown on me. It's one of those movies that I don't sleep particularly well. I think if you've been with me through the over 1200 episodes and 10 years now, that is something that's evident. I mention it quite a bit. My sleep pattern's always been a bit dodgy and it probably will never sort itself out. And as a result, I'm left with a lot of times to have those introspective moments in the wee twilight hours, kind of contemplating life's bigger questions sometimes. But yeah, I enjoy moments of sitting with a good pair of headphones on. I sound like an old man right now. Good pair of headphones on and listening to like movie soundtracks and like concept albums. And when it comes to movies, I enjoy things that capture me fully, like are so engaging that I feel like I'm being absorbed into the movie. And Under the Skin over time has become something that has almost enveloped my full consciousness every time I watch it. There's a couple of factors behind why it has such a prominence for me. I think the big thing is its setting. So it is set in Glasgow and I think it's Greenock as well, and Scotland. So a lot of the scenery is places I know I have been to or I've seen before. The roads are reminiscent of roads I've driven on. And the landscape obviously is something that I'm acclimated to. So that it draws me in on that realm. But moreover, it's dealing with a kind of subject matter which horror is inherently great at dealing with, maybe more than any other genre, which is what it is to be human and how if you are an alien, for example, those elements of humanity, compassion, specifically, which might be foreign concepts to a race that has never come across them before, can weigh heavily on our consciousness. The synopsis for this one is listed on IMDb as a mysterious young woman seduces lonely men in the evening hours in Scotland. However, events lead her to begin a process of self-discovery. So the kind of loose synopsis for this one is Scarlett Johansson is an alien. She is tasked to, we are assuming, either capture humans for study or humans for food. It's never really parsed out, but she lures unsuspecting men with her wily sexual advances to a large black room where they're essentially engulfed and then consumed by a liquid in the room, and only their skin shell is left behind. And she seems to have been pretty good at this. You know, this is an assignment that people from this alien race have to do, and the apparently all, as you will find it by the end, pretty much all hit a similar point where they have to give up their post. They're extracted or swapped out. And I think that's because the longer they spend with humanity, eventually one of us will show something which makes them compassionate, and that's an emotion or feeling they can't deal with. And as a result of that, it kind of breaks them. Scarlett Johansson's character essentially baits a lot of young guys without issue for a while until she comes across a kind of heavily disfigured guy who she ultimately feels sorry for. She has this degree of compassion for him, and this starts to affect her ability to do her job as this kind of alien, you know, fishing pole or whatever. I don't know. Like basically this bait on a hook for human men and their libido, and this essentially kind of destroys her in a lot of respects because she wants to further experience what it is to be human, even against the wishes of her alien compadres. who ultimately try and get her not to like not to stay, to return home, to return back to the fold. And she doesn't listen, and she gets further seduced by the idea of what it is to be human, that she essentially, and this will be one of these ones where Duncan's fairly nihilistic, bleak view of the world starts to permeate right through his review, but she gives herself over, assuming that all humanity is compassionate, and runs afoul of first a rape situation, and then is ultimately, attacked. Her skin shell scraped, revealing the alien underneath, and then, as humans will want to do, killed for being different. Essentially murdered, which is a purely tragic fucking end. It's a very A24 ending. That's what I meant about it being the proto of a lot of their movies. A24 horror movies seldom have a happy ending. And I'm sure the people out there will be like, well, Midsummer has a happy ending. Yes, it does, but not if you're one of the victims. Yeah, it's like a kind of process of a foreign being trying to work out what it is to be human, trying to capture the best of what humanity is, but running afoul of the fact that humans ultimately are animals. We haven't evolved that much further than monkeys with fire. And ultimately, those that are different will be burned, literally, in this movie. I think Under the Skin paces incredibly well. Some people I've seen in reviews in the past think it's a bit long. It runs about an hour and 50, which might feel a bit long considering the first hour of this movie is a repetitive cycle of her picking up people to lure them. But I actually think that's where a lot of the hard work of this movie is actually set up. There is a level of kind of repetition and mundanity that has to be parsed out here for you to understand why she would want something more beyond what it is she's doing. The effect of that kind of human connection only really works in a way where you've been stuck. How many times, let's put it this way, how many times have you been doing the day job and you've got to a point where you've seen something else or someone else doing something else or read an article or whatever and thought to yourself, I wonder what it'd be like to live 5 minutes like that person, 5 minutes in that person's shoes. And that's kind of what the character arc here is all, like this cold and calculating cruelty that she's inflicting out, maybe not fully conscious of what that is because of her lack of quote unquote humanity, and the kind of mundanity of repeating the same task over and over again to be given a glimpse of something which breaks the confines of how her brains and emotions work. um, is what sets up that back kind of 45 minutes. For those that may be confused as well as to why this is on a horror list, this movie is horror. I mean, it's as horror as putting a movie like Species on the list, and no one would argue that Species is a horror movie. The only difference is that one goes out and over the top with the gore and the kind of sci-fi horror. This one's much more cerebral about it. You still get the like really cool effects, but this movie almost basks in minimalism for a lot of it. I would argue that one of the scenes that hit me more and has done more with time, probably because I have kids now and that that affects me more, is the scene of the parents essentially dying, one being lured out to see the other one getting caught as well, and the baby being left on the shore, presumably to die to because of the elements. And that scene of her just walking away and the horrific cries of a baby at night time trapped on a beach will fucking stay with you when this movie finishes. It's one of those ones where it doesn't need to show you anything else, it just needs to play the sound. And sound design is a huge part of Under the Skin. Mika Levy, who does the score on this one, absolutely nails it. I think it's one of my favourite scores of like the last decade. Weird to think this movie's 10 years old now. But it's like one of my favourite of the last decade. I think it's haunting, has that kind of almost 2001 A Space Odyssey sci-fi element about it, but and at times actually reminds me a little bit of a kind of less ostentatious Beyond the Black Rainbow score, where it has all those tropes of science fiction and synths and noise and sounds and warmth and shade and depth, but it plays really really well with the concepts of dread and the music, which are an undertow in quite a lot of what plays through and just kind of works so well for it, elevates it in a lot of ways. I think the movie is shot with a kind of coldness that you would get from like a cold lab. And I think that kind of works that way as well. This idea of if she is there for harvesting of food or for experimentation, humans are seen as cattle, as an experiment. So I kind of think that wash works very, very well with it. It's all kind of whites and blacks, very sterile looking movie overall, but really, really, really works. As she starts to grapple with more of what she perceives as humanity, more colour actually starts to bleed into the movie, which I think is a really clever concept. Jonathan Glazer apparently had a bit of a nightmare getting this movie made, and hasn't really done a huge amount since. He's probably more commonly known for doing a kind of quasi gangster movie, British gangster movie called Sexy Beast before this one, which starred Ray Winston. It's an excellent movie. It was made for Film 4, as was this, in partnership with A24. And I would highly recommend you check it out, even though it's not within the genre. It's a great movie. He's a brand new movie coming out via A24. I believe it's playing some festivals this year, and I'm kind of hoping we get a release of some description either towards the end of this year into the year after. He's a hugely interesting director, and the fact he doesn't rush out to do projects really ingratiates himself to me. I prefer that in a lot of ways. Under the Skin is a movie as well, which is kind of almost genius level because it takes an actress like Scarlett Johansson, who I believe was maybe pregnant when she made this movie, early stages of pregnancy, and like transforms her, puts a kind of really ugly wig on her, like cakes her face in makeup that she generally wouldn't wear, and has her in kind of unflattering like positions and vehicles in this movie, almost kind of in some levels stripping out what makes her a very attractive human being by making her the perception of what men think attractive women are at a base level. She's excellent in this movie. A lot of people will say, well, she's not really saying much and she's not really doing much, but her presence on the screen is such that you can't take your eyes off her. And I get the feeling, you've got to remember as well, big A-list actress doing small indie sci-fi horror movie. And in 2013 as well, it feels like a risk. And I don't know how many actors would take a risk like that nowadays. And certainly for her to do that, it paid off big time. Yeah, I think this movie is absolutely brilliant. It's one of my favourites because in the quieter moments of my day when I can't sleep and I want something just to like wash over me like a warm bath, Under the Skin is a movie I will put on. I've seen it God knows how many times. I'll watch it God knows how many more. And it's a movie I'll never tire of. It's number 10 on my top 10 favourite horror movies for this rundown towards our anniversary. So there you go. Yeah, that's our first review in the bag. That felt good. I feel like I've got another 9 in me, guys, so we can do this. Like I said at the start, if you are checking us out on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you are checking us out on Spotify, on the video or audio app over there for the podcast, at the end there'll be a little question that pops up because they like doing that. They force it into the end of the episodes. So yeah, take a couple of seconds, write something in there, send it back to me. I would love to know what you guys thought of Under the Skin. Whether you agree or not, you might be one of the people that genuinely thinks this is a dull, boring, long, pedantic exercise in slogging through cinema. Or you might be thinking to yourself, Duncan, 10's pretty low, I'd have this much higher. I'm genuinely curious to see where you guys land on it. As always, if you're listening to us in any podcatchers, make sure you're subscribed. That way you will get all the episodes that I drop. We have another 9 of these left, so for the next 9 days, we'll be counting down 9 through to the top spot at number 1. Thank you very much for checking out this episode. Thank you, more importantly, for supporting the podcast Under the Stairs for the last 10 years. And here's to many, many more. So, for this episode, I say to you that wherever you are, whatever the time zone is, and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.